Hello.
Microphone, you're good.
I don't know, you guys can probably hear me, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty small room. I think I'm supposed to tell my life story now. Law stories are pretty boring. They're often confidential. I can't tell most of them. I can tell you guys tech stories. I started off doing programming work back in high school. I think the first paid work I had was in exchange for a year's supply of cake. There's a local cake store near where I lived, and I wasn't very good at designing websites, but they agreed to trade me a website for a cake a month for a year. So that was good. That led to some other paid work that was slightly better than being paid in cakes. And in grade 12, the principal of my school went to the computer programming teacher and asked, who's good at programming stuff? Because we've got these paper forms for parent-teacher interviews, but that's obviously a bad idea. And he didn't know how to do it, but clearly having students taking forms home, filling in what times the parents want, and then they all come in with all the same times and try to sort them out. That doesn't make any sense. So we came up with a system instead, where it's online, where parents register, and the schedules are there that are visible. Parents can book them on the go. We made this system. It wasn't really a business. We didn't know how to do any of that kind of stuff. But then we started selling it to other schools afterwards. We never had a contract with the school anyway, so that was fine. This business still exists actually today. I haven't been a part of it for a long time. In theory, I own 5% of it, I think, but there was never any paperwork. If I could go back then, maybe I'd have some advice for myself on how to better form a company. I don't really recommend that approach, but the software still exists. It's used in Switzerland and Australia and all over the world, and another guy we knew in high school runs it today. In university, I did lots of other contract programming work. I won a bunch of hackathons, did some other neat stuff, and then I decided to go to law school because I thought that would be fun. Went to law school, did another hackathon there that did well. Later on in law school, there was a professor visiting a lawyer from one of the big firms, which I later went to article at. And the person was saying, I was working on this multi-million-dollar deal, and thank God I saw there was this new law I just happened to come across that really affected my deal, and if I hadn't seen that, it would have been bad for the client. Wait, what? Partners in major law firms don't know about important laws that affect their clients in multi-million-dollar deals? And nobody's laughing at that or nodding along because you're still wondering, is that true today? Was it ever true? Still true today? They don't really know. I built this service that what it did was clients put in keywords. And what it did was it monitored for regulations, bills, speeches in the legislature, royal proclamations, all these other different government services. And whenever clients' keywords came up, they would get an email that excerpted out of those sources and delivered to them by email. And I thought this would be really good to sell to this lawyer and the other big firms. Instead, they weren't interested. They never were interested. I had them kicking the tires for years, different law firms. But instead, a bunch of lobbyists and major companies ended up using it. One of the big tobacco companies ended up using it. I just have that on my website, the big tobacco company or client. I feel like that one's a little controversial with people. Those guys were the best client, by the way. So for entrepreneurs here, tobacco companies, I recommend dealing with them. They're very down-to-earth, nice people, good business. They don't pay so quickly, got long billing cycles, but yeah, tobacco companies are a good one. So I got that. Later on, that led to meeting an Israeli lawyer who was here in Canada who wanted to work for my law practice. And he said, and I just happened to notice you have this government monitoring service that I was still running but not doing too much with. And he said, I've got my own legal tech business, and what it is it's this library service for empirical case studies on regulation, which is super niche topic. He was doing his PhD in regulation at York, and he had a bunch of US law libraries like Harvard and the University of Texas paying him, I think, $75 a year for this service, which no one can ever make any money on. I guess that's another lesson for people. Don't charge $75 a year. Basically, no matter what you're doing, you'll find it impossible to make any money doing that. And he couldn't make any money doing that. And he said, well, it'd be good if you could combine the thing you did with these email alerts with my case study idea. But I didn't think that was a very good idea. We talked about it, and he had a lot of good ideas. And the idea was, well, what if we could index all of the world's laws, bring them all into this giant database, and then people could search them, and machine translations finally got them good enough, we could translate them all into English, which is a monumental task, but thanks to my business partner's savvy, he managed to get massive amounts of support from Google, AWS, and Microsoft. At one point, we had all three of them giving us money. That's another good lesson. Try to get money from tech companies. You'd be surprised what they don't care about, like the fact that we're also using their competitors and promoting them and things. Many of them don't care very much. That's another good lesson. We were getting $100,000 from one of them. They just did not care. These guys didn't return our emails, just giving us money for nothing. So that was great. And my business partner's service was really good that he had Harvard as a client with this terrible service that made no money because we had Harvard as a client. So we kept the company name being the same, and we upped the price by a lot and sold them a completely different service the next year when they were renewing. And then we had Harvard as a client, and also University of Texas and some other ones. And if you have Harvard as a client, then you can get Oxford as a client. And if you have them as a client, you can get the other ones. So my business partner just went to the different universities, leveraging that into other ones. So we ended up getting a bunch of good academic clients like that. And surprisingly, this works. Sometimes people don't check what they're buying, and they don't really know. And yeah, we were buying it last year from the same company. This is probably good. And then they'll end up buying something different. I don't think that strategy is applicable to most people, but if this happens to work for your business, it's a winning strategy. We later got the US Department of Justice and some other things, and my business partner still runs the business today. I'm not involved with that one. That's my various entrepreneurial stuff, plenty of other tech things there, but this worked really well for starting my law practice because I really knew what entrepreneurs needed. And many lawyers don't really know that. And I switched from doing programming work and working with lots of programmers, and I knew that business well, and I just went to the other side of the table and started working for programmers on their contracts. And I knew exactly what was coming up for them, like how to do their sales, what's going on with their business. And the more you know about somebody's business, the more likely you are to be effective. Another lesson there that probably is applicable to lots of other people is that I did lots of work that many lawyers wouldn't do because it would be beneath them or not particularly profitable. That's not a very good way to start a business if you're not very good at doing things, which when I started off doing my law practice, I wasn't particularly good at doing things. I'm much better today, or at least I hope I am. I articled at a giant firm where you learn very little about the practical stuff that's involved in doing a business, but I'd run a bunch of them, so I was really good because I could just do legal stuff for them. Did a lot of little files, you build it up from there. If you do a really good job of little things that you make no money from, you get something slightly better next time. You have a little bit better skills, you can raise your rates, keep working on things. Throughout my law practice, I applied something I did with my programming business, which might be applicable to the programmers in the room, which is when I'm really busy with work or school or whatever it is that I was also doing, and I didn't really want to do the work, I would quote people a way higher price, like double or triple. And you know, sometimes people will pay it. And if you don't really care whether you're going to get it or not, because you don't want to stay up till 10 o'clock doing some work for somebody, charge them 3 times as much, they might say yes. I do this with my law practice as well. It's kind of brutal. You end up working a lot of hours, but sometimes you can make a lot of money doing that, so that's a pretty good one. I got a call at the beginning of 2014 from a very unknown entrepreneur, and he likes to tell people a story that he'd call up a bunch of big law firms and nobody would come and talk to him because lots of lawyers won't go to people's offices because that's a waste of their time. It wasn't. He was a co-founder of Ethereum. That was a good call to take. I'm glad I went to his office. Again, probably not very applicable for all of you, but some of you, it's worth going to people's office. The people might be the co-founders of one of the largest cryptocurrencies in the world. And that will probably be good for your career. Several years later, I ended up joining a company that I incorporated for him, which was Decentral. ended up being the president of that, had an amazing run through the crazy crypto story of the last couple of years on that side. And now I'm back to the practice of law, having done these things and various other things. This isn't really a nice cohesive story like Hessam's, where it's like step 1, step 2, step 3. I don't know, there's a lot of steps and a lot of different ways to do different things. But if you work hard at stuff, and you do the shitty work that other people might not really want to do, and you get really good at that, eventually you'll do better work, and you'll make more money doing things. And you probably enjoy it too, because you're an entrepreneur and you get to do the work that you want to do. You get to choose the path that you want to take, which is the nice thing with running your own business. You get to make the decisions. I think it was Cassim earlier saying Deloitte does things a certain way. Not all of what they do is great. Maybe they think that, maybe they don't. You get some better ideas. I tell this to articling students and summer students. Wherever possible, I try to make time to buy people coffee and chat with them, in part because very few people are willing to do that with me. So I try and help out other people instead. And what I tell people is if you start your own law practice, if you start your own business, you can do whatever you want. And within the bounds of the law, which in Canada is a lot. There's a lot of different things you can do. If you start your own business, you can do the way you want to. And if you have good ideas, maybe other people want to do business with you, and maybe that'll be successful. So, good luck everyone. That's a bit of life story. I think I'm really supposed to talk about law though. The speed dating stuff afterwards, I'm happy to chat with all of you. I can't give you legal advice because of some rules about lawyers.
Some.
Yeah, there are some. And so, tell me a general situation, not your specific situation. And I can give you some general information about it, or maybe guide you to the right place on it. But I'm happy to chat afterwards with that. And if people have some questions now, I'm not sure how much time I have, but you're welcome to have at it with crypto questions in the next few minutes. I think you beat to it. Okay.
I read your NFT license. Read it. How did this happen? Like, why did you come up with it?
I didn't make the NFT license. I just criticized them.
Okay.
Friendly criticism.
So what was your, like, why? Like, I'm not understanding. Of course I understand why NFT license is good or bad, but like, yeah, would love to hear you in person.
He's talking about a blog post I wrote a couple weeks ago. And NFTs are non-fungible tokens. It's a really interesting thing that lots of crypto people have been looking at over the last few years. And there's a company called Dapper Labs that made CryptoKitties, and they put out an NFT license, which is worth checking out because it's a really fascinating license. Probably many of you don't think licenses are very fascinating, but this one is. It's pretty neat what they're trying to do. To try to make it so they have kind of a small business friendly license that deals with the interesting type of thing they've come up with, where they're combining these art assets that the company and other people have come up with a market, with this non-fungible token. It's a really interesting thing to read about, and lots of people are interested in NFTs and coming up with lots of neat angles on it. That's not really an answer.
I know, it's okay.
I didn't break the license. It's neat. It can use some improvement, and they're inviting comments, so if you've got some good ideas for it, they'll definitely want to hear from you.
Having made the move from being an entrepreneur to in-house to being an entrepreneur again, what things would you consider? Would you consider being in-house again, and how often? I mean, what would something have to be to make you look at that?
That is a good question. And I said you can do whatever you want, and that's kind of what I'm doing now, where I'm sort of like in-house counsel for a few companies, which is a growing model for law, and for people engaging with lawyers, for those of you who run businesses. Having in-house counsel is really expensive. So there's a bunch of firms that have come up with like these part-time in-house counsel models. There's lots of variations on this. And believe it or not, there really is some innovation in legal services delivery. And lots of people are trying to come up with new models. I have a particularly different one than what other people are. My prices are online, which is amazing for lawyers. And that comes from a different business I started, kind of, a flat rate legal services marketplace, where when I started my law practice, there was actually nowhere to advertise legal services with price attached to it, because lawyers don't really do that. And at one point, it was actually illegal, up until the 80s, to tell people what your price was publicly for lawyers. A few years ago, I made this flat rate legal services marketplace. I've got about 100 and something lawyers onto this platform where they posted their services and the prices for doing it for productizing law. And I'm very interested in that and lots of other ideas that lawyers are coming up with to try to make law more affordable, different models for law, and
Is that still running? What is that marketplace for? Is that still running? What is that marketplace for?
It is. It's a little different now. Flatlaw.ca is the website. And there's still nobody else really tackling it. But entrepreneurs interested in this, something that needs work. Lots of lawyers see the need for legal innovation and new approaches, but they're often not really sure how to tackle it. So if you have some good ideas from non-law that you want to apply to law, you might be successful in that.
Do you have any general advice about people that have a variety of different ideas in different pockets around smart contracts and other pieces in the blockchain space, that when they're trying to research it, they obviously need to share enough information about the ideas with other people to see if there's competition or other pieces in the space, but at the same time they don't really want to give away too much in order to risk losing the ideas out into the open domain. Like any general ideas, like there's only so much you can patent or trademark or other get processes down. Like any kind of thoughts on how to have that borderline and not lose the intellectual capital that you can build.
The answer most people would tell you is an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, to cover that. Some people won't sign them for things, and most of the time, ideas are not worth very much. And innovators are always really keen on their ideas. And don't take us the wrong way about whatever ideas maybe you have on this. Some ideas really are valuable.
I'm talking to.
NDA, patent, these sorts of things might be the answer, but most of the time it's worth it to tell people what your ideas are, and maybe they can fill you in. Oh, hey, there's this competitor out there that has something different, or maybe they'll want to join your business.
Yeah.
And usually sharing ideas is the better path. This isn't really the legal answer on it.
No, I'm just trying to get your general experience and what you see and not see, right? So.
Yeah, lots of people won't sign NDAs though.
No.
Because often the people who want you to sign an NDA are the people who have the ideas that are often not as good as the ones of the people who don't want you to sign the NDA. If people are super aggressive about an NDA, it might be a sign that they're not a great person to do business with, judging from past experience. But for larger corporate players, NDAs are standard. If you have some kind of proprietary method, especially if it's based on some kind of particular industry knowledge that you have in something, then an NDA might be the right answer. Totally depends.
Any comments on open law?
Sir, one second.
What is the experience with people who are trying to slice the pie and say like, oh, this is my part of the business, this one. Like, how do you see these people? Yeah,
This
so
is a question
we
of
shared about the ideas to say like, I mean, these people are not very good. But yeah, what is your experience with people who want to equity in the company and something like that?
That's a big topic, but a really important one. And it is quite common, like with my startup clients, that somebody leaves. There was a question earlier about, how do you retain your employees? Everyone has this problem. Same with founders too. And starting a company is hard work. It's a hard voyage, and along the way, it's entirely possible one of your co-founders will say, you know what, this is a ton of work. I'd rather get a job at Google instead and not have to worry about these things. It happens. It's one of the biggest risks for startups with great people, because great people always have other things to do, and there's different ways of handling that. Vesting agreements, shareholder agreements, one of the two, possibly both, depending on your situation. Or nothing. Nothing's probably not the right answer. Sometimes it is.
In the blockchain space, this open law movement, any comments? Open law.
I think they need to improve their documentation, because I've actually met a couple of people from there, and I don't think they have much that's public yet, but is easy to understand.
Is it workable?
Some parts of it are. There's a contract. library, but it's mostly a different services stuff put together. So I'm not quite sure. I think they have much grander ambitions than what's on the website.
How do you see it? Actually, do you have any case studies or like examples would be really cool? Like smart contract code working with like real law, kind of like mashing together. Kind of like, for example.
Yeah, every SEO.
Okay, but like, what kind of like actual like gap music? So I can give like maybe Augur, they have like a whole decent Oracle thing, you know, kind of somehow having outside law and outside people playing pressure on to certain tasks and certain things that are governed by smart contracts.
Is there a more direct way of asking a question? What are you asking about?
I'm asking how does the future of law and smart contract, like code is law, kind of combine to make some sort of middle ground, if that makes sense? And is that happening in a non-ideal way? In a more use case?
Why don't we talk afterwards? Because that answer is not really amenable to like soundbite Q&A, and I think they're going to cut me off soon. Like it's a
Fair enough.
complicated discussion.
I'm very.
Sorry. Let's. I will chat with you afterwards about it. It's a great question.
Actually, we'll probably stop that there so that the contract doesn't hear what the answer is.
Thanks, everyone.